The 35-year-old Stephanie Bernoth was wearing a long scarf, not unusual on a crisp desert morning. Like all other passengers, she was even instructed to dress up to keep warm on higher altitudes. However, she boarded the basket from the side, requiring the passengers to walk past the fan inducing all that inward drag, scooped up her scarf. In a heartbeat, the fabric tightened, entangled in the blades in the drive shaft, hurling her violently towards itself. An unrelenting, powerful machine. On a bright sunny morning over a vast desert, it was to rise to the heavens, a sight of envy and desire the world sighs to, seeing it on postcards. But it was to be one flight to nowhere. All it took was a whiff of air, a flick of fabric, and the turn of a rotating blade. It's July 2013. A couple has travelled from New South Wales to the Northern Territory. The idea is to explore a truly remarkable part of the world, the Australian Outback near Alice Springs. And what could be better to experience it from up and above, riding along on a hot air balloon. What an incredible thing they are, the hot air balloon, like the Greek god Hephaestus forged them on his workshop in Mount Olympus, and Hermes gave them his winged son Talaria. In reality though, there's hardly anything sophisticated or ornamental about them, apart from their fancy colors perhaps. It's industrial machinery that almost predates the Industrial Revolution with all its noises, force and kinetic action. Compared to the modern day gear, it is really rather simple, simply rising to some air when it is hot enough. But before the pilot uses the onboard propane burners to heat that air up the vast fabric canopy, it must first be filled with it. A job for a petrol-driven inflation fan, spinning mulishly its wooden blades on a powerful motor. We often think of aviation risks as things that go wrong up in the air. Engine failures, storms, miscalculations at altitude, something high-tech, tremendous and sophisticated. But sometimes the danger is right at the ground level, elementary and mundane, something you can almost call ordinary had it not been for the dreadful consequences. Inflation fans, motorized propellers in general, are or at least can be very powerful. They can create suction strong enough to not just pull fabric, but large heavy items right into their rotating mechanism. And once an item is entangled, the torque, depending on how powerful the motor is, can be utterly ruthless. About 10% of the total number of workplace fatalities in Australia each year are due to being trapped between moving machinery or being trapped between stationary and moving objects. This amounts to some 20-odd fatalities a year, which implies hundreds of such injuries, several a day for sure. And when they happen, it's not just the hearts that they break. It must be said that the ballooning company should have conducted a task and day-specific risk assessment. Later investigation suggested that they did too, except it lacked the competence of an effective professional one. So it happened in an instant, an entirely preventable calamity. The scarf Stephanie had on was wrapped twice around her neck and had lightweight tassels on each end, some of which extended beyond the bottom of her coat. Once caught in the blades of the mighty rotating fan, she was dragged towards the steel guard, while the scarf itself tightened around her neck, strangling her. She was rushed to a hospital in Alice Springs, where medical efforts could not save the day. She died 2 days later. The Australian Transport Safety Bureau (ATSB) investigated the incident and found that while the pilot did conduct 2 safety briefings prior to the proposed flight, and that it did include remaining clear of the fan as it was noisy and dangerous, none of the passengers interviewed could recall if those briefings included the specific danger of fan entanglement. In fact, some passengers even mentioned that items such as gloves, beanies and scarves had been recommended to them by the operators so as to be able to keep warm at higher altitudes. The investigation also found that the method of boarding required the passengers to be in a close proximity of an operating fan, and that stronger physical separation, improved guarding, or shutting down the fan altogether during the passenger movement would have had a decisive effect on the risk.
Outback ballooning directors Andrea and Jason Livingston were today handed the fine of $120,000 and ordered to pay other costs after the court found the company's failure to comply with its work health and safety duty resulted in Mrs. Bernoth's death. Mr. Livingston pleaded guilty on behalf of the company last month. Judge Greg Borges said the defendant company has pleaded guilty and is genuinely remorseful and has been cooperative with the Anti-Work Health Authority and the Australian Transport Safety Bureau, which carried out the investigation. Mitchell Abram, ABC News, Alice Springs.
Nothing brings the loved ones back once we've lost them, but surely it is upon us to see to it that lessons at such precious cost are learned, preventing future incidents. And to that end, here's what to do. Where there is even a remote risk of entanglement, an effective and compliant machine guarding must be fitted. All rotating shafts, coupling, belts, pulleys, rollers, augers, chains and spindles, etc. must be enclosed or isolated. In case of unavoidable human exposure, it's best really to shut it down. A professionally conducted risk assessment can and does make a difference of life and death. And on that note, the matter is not and should not be treated as common sense. Either you seek training if you've not already, or you seek professional assistance. Among other things, a competitive risk assessment will also identify appropriate administrative control, especially when there's a weak human-machine interface. Enforced exclusion zones, loose clothing policy, supervised mobility, and specialized training and so on. Working alongside the more robust engineering controls, these too work their magic if undertaken correctly. In some cultures, especially Southeast Asia, a scarf-like loose clothing item, such as the one Stephanie was wearing, is a permanent staple. For most part, they work. It's those surprise instances that one cannot be too careful with. As for the hot air balloon, they remain statistically a safe recreational aviation activity. Especially after this incident, some robust controls have been put in place for risk mitigation. Thousands of flights have since occurred without such incident. That said, safety is a discipline, not a reputation. Thanks for watching. Join the Planet Safety Initiative if you've not already. If you know of an incident that you want us to look into, leave it in the comment section below. Like and subscribe for more.